Hey guys, Caleb here from CDBS Studios, and 2026 is the year that we finally get a brand new Scream film in the form of Scream 7. Now, I have become an instant huge fan of the Scream franchise, as I only really got into it last year when I binged all of the Scream films for Halloween. So I only recently became a Scream fan, but I absolutely love this franchise, this little horror parody franchise that parodies all horror that I love and makes a very fun slasher flick. And Scream 7 has been getting a lot of controversy recently and a lot of people really dogging on it. I'll say straight up, Scream 7 is not as that bad. It's not as bad as the world is trying to make you maybe believe that it is through everything that's happening online. So, without further ado, let's dive into my spoiler review on Scream 7, and I'm going to tell you why it's a good movie despite what the entire internet is trying to tell you. Now, before going into the film itself, I do want to just set up a little bit what my expectations were for this film. First off, you can't really talk about Scream 7 without addressing the behind the scenes controversy, because if you're completely unaware, Paramount fired Melissa Barrera, who was the lead for Scream 5 and 6, and as a result, Jenna Ortega also left, which does mean that this film had a lot of cards stacked against them because they had to make a premature reason as to why Sydney is the focus again. And their absence is definitely felt in the movie, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And I was willing to look past that whole behind the scenes controversy going into this movie. And the trailers themselves also had a lot of controversy as well with how they were marketing the movie and a lot of that. But thankfully, I will say this straight up, the things the trailer showed are mostly from the beginning of the movie. So after you get past the first like 20 or so minutes, you're completely into new territory from what they showed you in the trailer. So just setting up those expectations straight up, because I knew if I don't talk about them right here at the start of this video, I'm going to get a ton of comments on it. So I just want to say straight up that going into this movie, I was willing to look past all of the controversial things with the controversy and the trailers, because I just wanted to see a new Scream movie. So I just thought I'd set that up right now here at the start of this review instead of having to say it at a later date after I get tons of comments about it. So here we go, just setting that up. Now let's actually get into the official review. Okay, so starting off with my positives on Scream 7. Now, Scream 7 has a lot of things about it that are really solid. First up is that you have all of the classic horror tropes that Scream is known for, as the whole premise of the Scream franchise is that we're parodying the classic horror films and just playing them as a fun little slasher flick, and everything you know Scream for does still exist in this movie. And overall, it's a very good little horror flick that's got some pretty decent jump scares, and even the kills in this movie are actually, I think, the goriest in the Scream franchise, so that was also really cool. And overall, everything you love about the original Scream films does exist here in Scream 7. It is a very fun movie. Also, I really loved the introduction of Tatum in this movie, getting to see Sydney's daughter, who is the main character, more or less, and has a pretty good plotline throughout the film, and I loved the whole reveal about why her name is actually named Tatum, which is a great little reference back to the original Scream, which is very fun for the 7th iteration of the franchise to go back to. And for more intense purposes, all of the new cast they introduced that's part of Tatum's friend group that are our red herrings and eventually our killers are very, very fun, and overall, I really did enjoy a lot of them, although I definitely have to say McKenna Grace is still got kind of shafted in this movie once again. Like, I don't know what's happening, why she keeps getting cast in these, like, horror films just to get, like, 10 minutes of screen time. I don't know why that keeps happening, but other than that, it's overall pretty great with the characters. Of course, still loved seeing Sydney and this kind of new stage of her life. Her husband in this movie is played by Joel McHale, so that's really fun, and I really did love seeing him in a new movie because I haven't seen him in a while, so that was great. And overall, the film was very, very fun when it came to handling its characters. And I will also say that I know this specific element of Scream 7 has been getting a lot of backlash, is that they use AI a little bit in this movie, as the killer's way to mess with Sydney is to use AI deepfakes of Stu Macher, Dewey, and all the some of the previous ghost faces to kind of messed with Sydney and that, which I know a lot of people are getting flagged with. I don't hate that idea, as it does seem like a really good natural progression of the franchise, as every new Scream movie tries to do something that's relevant to the time it takes place in. So having it involve in all of the AI stuff does not hate me so much. And a little bit of a spoiler, that's kind of like a major spoiler. The whole film tries to lead you into believing that Stu Macher is still alive and is in fact the Ghostface killer of the Scream 7. And I will say this straight up, I'm actually happy that Stu isn't revealed to be the actual killer and it is actually a deep fake, because the whole film tries to make you lead you to believe that he is, and I'm actually happy he didn't come back, because personally I feel like that would have been a huge retcon and it might have tanked the entire film for me personally if it was revealed that he was the actual killer. So, but behind all that, the other great thing about this movie is that it's just a fun Scream movie. Like, I genuinely believe this fact that we have never gotten a bad Scream movie, and this still applies to Scream 7, as I still loved going through this movie. The mystery is still fun to tackle, and overall, this does just feel like a new Scream. And overall, humor was good, and seeing this in a packed theater on opening night was still fun. So, Scream 7 was a very good movie that has a lot of really solid positives. Unfortunately, Scream 7 also has a fair bit of negatives to it. So, obviously, there's no escaping the fact that Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega not being in this movie does kind of retroactively deal the film a bad hand, where, of course, their presence is very missed, especially after setting them up as the new protagonists over two movies. And as a result, this movie has to makes a lot of excuses for why Sydney was absent from New York in Scream 6, and also why the film focuses on her now instead of anybody else, which is which is a little annoying, especially for the first like 20-30 minutes of the film, where they're actively trying to keep going on about, oh, why she missed Scream 6 and where she was and why we're focusing on her this time around. They spend a lot of time making excuses on that fact, which I guess was kind of inevitable since everything that happened with the film. So it's just a little annoying though, so I figured I'd bring it up because it was a little bit of a negative for me. Also, this is the first time in the franchise since Scream 4 for me where the ghost-faced plan, as the whole premise at the very end of the film when the ghost face gets revealed, is that they bring up their whole motivation for doing the murder spree. And this is one of the few times where the ghost face motivation makes little to no sense at all. Like, it's very much a case, much like that first thing, where they're trying to justify that we have to focus on Sydney this time, so they try to make the Ghostface motivation connect to Scream 6, because the whole premise of the Ghostface is they always connect back to the previous movie, but Sydney wasn't in the previous movie, so they have to make up some dumb excuse for why their plan hinges on Scream 6, but also hinges on Sydney now instead of anybody else, which is very, very weird, to be honest, for me. And honestly, as well, at the end, the Ghostface, I feel like, monologues for way longer than the usual Ghostface monologue, because of the fact that, they have to explain all the stuff about why they're connected to Scream 6 and also connected to Sydney, which goes for a very long time. Also, this is another kind of little bit of a major spoiler, but this film, in a way, thinks it's smarter than it is, because most of the film's trying to be subversive in that, so they spend the whole film focusing on Sydney, Tatum, and the friend group that Tatum's a part of, which means that the two people who are revealed to be the ghost faces aren't in the film a lot. And I'm gonna be completely honest, when one of the ghost faces took off their masks, I genuinely had to take a second chance to think about it, because that ghost face was in one scene like 40 minutes before his reveal. So I had no memory of who he was until I had to sit back and think about, oh wait, you were that character. We did know who you were, which means that you also don't have the aha moment that you get from the Ghostface reveal like I have in every other Scream movie, which is a little bit of a downfall. Also, the weird thing in this movie is that they bring back Gail, Mindy, and Chad from the previous two movies and Gail from the previous films as kind of the side characters because, of course, we always got to have Gail in a Scream movie, apparently. But this is the first time in the whole franchise, in my opinion, that you can cut Gail from the film and nothing changes. Like I mentioned, because the whole film wants to focus on Sydney, Tatum, and the friend group, Gail, Mindy, and Chad show up, then they're part of like maybe 10 minutes of screen time in the middle, and then they just disappear until the end. It's very weird, and it honestly makes me feel like, why are they even here? Like, I'm honestly thinking from like a story reason. Like, I can understand why Courtney Cox is back as Gail, but like, Mindy and Chad, why are they here? Like, we could have had another character show up to explain the horror trope rules for Scream 7 instead of bringing back Mindy and Chad, but whatever. I mean, this film does kind of set up a fun little premise that I hope they go for later films, that Mindy and Chad may end up replacing Gail as the reporter character who shows up in the Scream films, which I think would be a great way to keep their characters around, especially if they're still planning to make multiple more Scream movies. So that would be my suggestion, especially if they want to try to retire Gail at some point, because I know Courtney Cox is getting up there, but it's fine. It doesn't offend me too much, but at the same time, seeing them on the poster makes it very annoying when they're not in the film a lot to really justify that point, unfortunately. So there's my thoughts on Scream 7. It's a movie I'm very conflicted on because at the end of the day, it was a very fun entry in the Scream franchise and gave me what I love about all the other Scream movies. It just unfortunately has those issues mainly involving the ghost faces, which is the main issue of this film, which is very similar to Scream 4 in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, I still really enjoyed Scream 7, despite what the rest of the internet is going to tell you. So I'm going to give Scream 7 a 7 out of 10. Honestly, it's just the score it deserves, guys. Yeah, Scream 7 is great, and I honestly would highly recommend it to, even though I would highly recommend this film, even though it's getting a lot of buzz and controversy on the internet and the boycotting and all that. It was still a fun movie, and I would highly recommend seeing it because it was still a good entry in the Scream franchise, because in my opinion, it's not the worst in the Scream franchise, but it's not the best, so it's like middle of the road Scream movie for me. So anyway, I would highly recommend the movie. Go see it. And I want to know, if you have seen Scream 7, let me know down in the comments down below what you thought about the film, and maybe we can get a conversation going. Without further ado, thank you guys all very much for watching this review, and I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.